Good morning to my students. Bluetooth in. I gotta go grab a cup of water. So, you guys are gonna come in official test start time 2 minutes. 5 pages, 5 paragraphs each. 5 words each sentence, 5 sentences per paragraph. 5 computer spaces in between. You can use your hyperscientific, any artificial intelligence, and 5 revisions. All you need to do is show the work, share it with the class. If you do not show the work, share it with the class. I'm going to assume all you did was use technology and we get 0 credit. So starting today, excellent performance yesterday, excellent rehearsal, excellent day, excellent customer service. Clients were happy. Um, Everything was good. Everything was firing on all cylinders. No complaints. Let me see. A little bit less glare. Yeah. That's why I'm getting glare in my head. That is because top of the morning, Mr. Clarence. Peace and blessings be with you. Want to make our journey.
Dime? No. No change. No dollars. Call it working for.
Now we take over the universe. Yes, indeed. Oh, man. You know what I did the other day? I put ketchup on my pizza. I do it every once in a while, but it was phenomenal. Which defeats the purpose because, uh, pizza sauce already has mad sugar, and ketchup has mad sugar. Um, where can we start? I don't know where to start. I made a tough decision 2 or 3 days ago. I waited to see what my team was going to decide, how they were going to make decisions. I was dissatisfied with the outcome. So I just said, you know what? If it's not a priority to anybody, it won't be a priority to me. Little by little, the lines of communication are delayed and they slow down, and then now everything is just stopped. Now I can reassess and say, okay, we're on the 7th of February. How many days is that into the year? This is the year that we solve bigger problems. Nothing. Okay. No problem. So let's let's keep moving forward. You know, let's keep pushing forward. Nothing personal. This is business. I don't feel good, bad, or indifferent. I just accept the situation for what it is. And, at the end of the day, it's the greatest, most liberating thing. I'm grateful for the way that it happened because when a certain part of my team, not my whole team, when that part of the team failed to deliver, after I explained to them, everything that was happening, I also let this group of people know, like, I hope all of you know that all these efforts, number one, it was always a test. Number two, I was looking for an excuse to reward everyone just for their effort. Nice vacation, a few performances, a little bit of networking. We make some money, we bring it back home to the United States. We do other things. Take another break, look for another opportunity, do it again. Now, today I'm gonna have to make some emails and some phone calls because Valentine's Day is 7 days away. So I'm gonna be on a flight first thing Monday morning, maybe later today or tomorrow night. So it's all good, baby. 2026, not waiting. I'm not waiting for anything or anybody. If you get off the money train, it's on you. God bless you. I hope you have something better than what I'm bringing to the table. Look at my baby for today. Classic. Something different. Oh. Finally enjoy it. Finally smell the roses, hear the birds. I can see the squirrels running through the trees. It took a long time in my life to be able to do it. So what do I need to work on? Since I'm a one-man squadron, right? One-man team. There's only my 22 in the sky, right? My F-22 Raptor still full of munitions, right? Okay. Logistics, not for one tour, one in series. Logistics for the tour, targeting all sales goals, working on a budget for that, and anything that's a priority for my granddaughter. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Everything else, I want to speak that language, I don't understand it. Let's see what's going on in the market. I'm 100% convinced that a high value man ain't out here looking for a 20-year-old woman. A few moments later. Paid to exit. The button's on my list. Kevin Samuels show, and 52 now I was 48, and he said I was almost 50 and I was old news, and y'all, guess what? I still ain't found nobody yet. I still have not found a man, and I keep trying to look younger and younger and younger, and I know I don't look like I'm in my 50s. So what is it? Can you help me out? What is it? What's the Dang, I can't remember his last name, but his name was Kevin. That was that dude who was talking to all those women about high value men and things like that. And I had went on his talk show once, and he told me pretty much that because I was a 50-year-old woman that I didn't qualify for a high value man. And I don't want to believe that because it's hundreds and thousands and millions of men in the world. I know they don't Facebook dates and stuff, but I haven't met one yet. Not one that has chosen me. So does that mean I got work to do? Or was Kevin right? Nah, Kevin wasn't right. Kevin, and maybe I got a little.
So I know that I'm probably gonna pick it up for real. He's picking it up for me. A wise person buys. This is the number one.
Noise, distractions. Go YouTube, go Bloomberg, the channel, a video. Go Asia Trade.
Business tax refund is coming into focus. File your taxes in a snap and make your
This is Asia Trade. I'm Shirian in Tokyo. I'm April Hong in Singapore. Your top stories this hour. Asian stocks set to extend Wall Street declines after more heavy selling in software and crypto. Bitcoin wiping out all its gains of the second Trump presidency. Amazon's $200 billion plans for AI infrastructure spending biting into its earnings outlook and sinking the stock in late
Muffin
trade.
time.
Also ahead, the countdown to Japan's lower house election as Prime Minister Takaichi gambles on her strong approval ratings and a sales tax cut. And Thailand set to go to the polls too, with voters weary of political instability and stagnant growth. We continue to watch the tech sector across Asia after that sell-off continued on the Wall Street session. We're looking at Nikkei futures to the downside right now after already 2 sessions of losses. And of course, it will all be about the Japanese elections over the weekend. We are now expecting to see potentially Prime Minister Takaichi winning a solid majority according to some polls. And we have already for the weekend, we are now expecting to AI infrastructure spending biting into its earnings outlook and sinking the stock in late trade. Also ahead, the countdown to Japan's lower house election as Prime Minister Takaichi gambles on her strong approval ratings and a sales tax cut. And Thailand set to go to the polls too, with voters weary of political instability and stagnant growth. We continue to watch the tech sector across Asia after that sell-off continued on the Wall Street session. We're looking at Nikkei futures to the downside right now after already 2 sessions of losses. And of course, it will all be about the Japanese elections over the weekend. We are now expecting to see potentially Prime Minister Takaichi winning a solid majority according to some polls. And we have already seen the focus on Japan's fiscal situation and the 30-year JGB auction, at least yesterday, showing solid demand, leading to JGBs to gain ground. We will continue to watch the earnings season unfolding here in Japan. We had some disappointing results weighing on the markets in the last session, but today we're watching Toyota Tokyo Electron after the market close as well. We're also seeing from South Korea some of the latest numbers on trade. Their December current account surplus widening, their goods trade surplus also widening, both numbers above $18 billion. This at a time when we've heard from South Korea's trade minister, the Seoul has conveyed to Washington that they're moving swiftly in order to really achieve those commitments to the U.S. on their trade deal last year, April. Sherry, overnight on the street, we saw yet more selling coming through in software and crypto as well, now below 65K. And in this risk retreat environment, value, small caps, they weren't spared either. We saw investors perhaps compounded by the worries in the U.S. jobs market, Compounding those concerns about the AI valuations and taking a look at how that also moves into some of the havens, you saw on the short end, treasuries gained, and the dollar also caught a bit of a bid. So there's a lot to unpack. Let's break this all down with Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Technology Research, Mandeep Singh, Bloomberg MLive strategist Brendan Fagan, and executive editor for crypto, Stacey Marie Ishmael. Mandeep, let's start with you because we did get Amazon numbers, and it was a case of another day, another high-flying tech stock showing that CapEx expenditure and being punished for it. How does it differ for Amazon, perhaps, given its cloud profitability seen as a weak link?
Yeah, you're right. I think the CapEx number was expected to go up given what we saw from Google last night. And look, I think in the case of Amazon, you are seeing that margin headwind, whereas Google's cloud margins actually expanded from 17 to 30%. So from that perspective, you can see why Amazon is going big in terms of raising their CapEx, because they want to make sure they are the dominant cloud provider. But in terms of the workloads, I think Google definitely has an advantage that they have their own family of apps, and then they can allocate, the NVIDIA GPUs to external customers, whereas Amazon, it feels like they are relying mostly on their Trainium chips for driving that AI workload revenue, and the Trainium chips may not be as performant as the NVIDIA GPUs. So that may be causing that margin headwind, which we saw in the results.
Our tax experts keep more money in your business, so you have more time for your business. Less tax stress, more open houses. Less tax hassle, more oat lattes. Less tax time, more grooming time. Get the most from your deductions. So
maybe causing that margin headwind, which we saw in the results.
And Brendan, given the skepticism right now about the AI build-out and how harshly these tech giants are being punished after results, is it a bit more concerning that the sell-off seems to be broadening right now, especially when you're talking about some private names like Ares, for example, that has this sort of exposure in the private sector as well with their investments on AI bets?
Absolutely. There have been concerns for weeks now permeating out of the private space about funding risks and what's going on behind the curtain of private credit. But today was the first real worrying day. If you looked at the price action earlier in the week, there were green shoots, whether you said it was an equal weight being up on the day or value or small caps holding in. Today was the first day where you can sit here and say there was nowhere to hide. So today's action is very uncomfortable. If I wanted to say there was a green shoot from today, it's that the S&P 500 did hold the 100-day moving average. So that's one thing to point to. But overall, today was pretty dark.
Stacey Marie, it was uncomfortable for crypto investors as well. Bitcoin keeps falling. We're seeing it past some of these oversold levels. Capitulation is a word that's being tossed around. What is your sense, though, of whether the selling is really over?
We're not seeing significant signs of the selling being over. I mean, just because of the way that Bitcoin trades, if you were to look at it on a Bloomberg terminal right now, I'd be like, oh, it's up, kind of, but that's just because of when the market closes and opens. I mean, we to Brendan's point, we had a day where we were down 14%, and the acceleration was such that we're seeing a lot of people get liquidated, a lot of positions are getting closed out, and what that is doing is for even what are sometimes called the true believers are kind of having a hard time, even if they still believe, they're just no longer profitable to an extent that makes sense for them to continue to be in the market. So we're looking at a few different things. We're going to be really closely paying attention, not just to Bitcoin, not just to Ether, but the state of the altcoin market. So the smaller tokens, the meme coins, because that's really a place where a lot of the speculative frenzy has been concentrated. We're going to keep a close eye on what's happening to crypto ETFs. Are people selling those? Are they pulling their money out of those? And of course, we're going to keep a close eye on the earnings of companies like Strategy, like Coinbase, and others to try to get a sense of what they're going to be projecting for the weeks and months ahead.
Stacey Marie, what has fundamentally changed for the crypto space, especially after the liquidation event in October that's leading to this really long-standing downtrend?
I think one of the things that's happened is nothing, right? Like there was a lot of expectation that by now we would have a second important piece of legislation in the United States that would, set up some governance around market structure that has pretty important potential consequences for things like stable coins. There hasn't been affirmative rhetoric coming out of the White House, whether it's from the Treasury side or President Trump himself. No one is kind of saying, hey, we're going to buy Bitcoin or we're supporting, the digital asset industry. So it's not the same narrative from the top down as there were we were hearing a few months ago. And instead what you're getting is just more competition for the same type of retail money, right? We're really seeing the rise of the prediction marketplaces like Kalshi and Polymarket kind of coming in and saying, hey, if you want to speculate, if you want to take a position on something, you can do it over here instead of using the crypto market for that.
Bitcoin is not about retail money.
Speaking of competition, Mandeep, we are seeing these software makers getting hit this week. Anthropic's rolling out another release, this time for financial research. I mean, how much of a challenge does this all provide to some of these software makers?
I mean, right now, I think the market is treating all of these product releases, as really a big headwind for pretty much every software category. We think, probably the infrastructure categories like cybersecurity are completely insulated, even though Anthropic has talked about launching a cybersecurity offering as well. And that's where, the data that Anthropic has will matter in terms of the products that they're releasing. I mean, cybersecurity, for example, requires a lot of system log data. I don't think you can replicate that sort of data, unless they acquire somebody or partner with somebody. So from that perspective, there is clearly an overreaction that you're seeing in the market, because every software company is being treated the same way right now in terms of multiple compression. And that clearly will clear out over time.
Brendan, to Mandeep's point, it almost looks like babies are being thrown out with the bathwater at this point. Where are investors going to hedge?
Funny enough, we talked so much last year about how poorly the dollar did, but it's been doing well over the last couple of weeks. Dollar index is up about 2.5% off the lows coming off of President Trump's comments about the dollar doing well, which ironically marked the low. So it seems like a capitulation actually turn the market higher there, and that could be the case in crypto, but it's hard to say that you want to step in and catch a falling knife, but oftentimes you need to see a market capitulate before you step in. So we've seen a bounce in the dollar over recent weeks. Today was a massive day for treasuries, so you're looking at your typical safe haven flows stepping in here.
How durable, Brendan, would you say the bounce in the dollar is, given what we're seeing on the pound as well?
I think it's interesting in the FX space because the big theme here is central bank divergence. You saw the RBA go just this week. You're seeing the BOE with a split vote, which was a surprise, hinting at easing probably sooner than everybody thought. ECB on hold. And then the interesting one today was BOC Governor Tiff Macklem, sounding a little bit more hawkish than everybody would have expected. So the theme here in FX is certainly central bank divergence, and the way that basket is constructed. If you get pound underperformance, you see the yen weakness that's going on. That can play into some dollar strength, and this rally can keep going. But ultimately, we need to know what Kevin Warsh is going to say. We just don't know when he's going to speak.
Hey, if you're a gun owner, I guarantee you're going to want this. This is like Duck Hunt for adults. This little system, right?
Warsh is going to say, we just don't know when he's going to speak.
Mandeep, when it comes to the tech sector, what could be the next catalyst? We're still awaiting NVIDIA results at this point.
Yeah, if there's one thing we can be certain about is that all of these accelerator companies, memory companies have demand that is off the charts. In fact, NVIDIA CEO kept saying, demand is literally taken off this year at CES and then at Davos. And so it's coming to fruition in terms of, what we are seeing from these companies. And given the CapEx increases that we are seeing for 2026, I mean, there's no doubt that these companies, NVIDIA, Broadcom, they're going to print great numbers. And, the supply shortages that we have heard are probably going to intensify, at least for the near term.
Stacey, this is all coming at the time where we are seeing more U.S. firms announcing a deluge of job cuts. And this seems to be coming through in the crypto space to some extent as well.
Yes, I mean, we haven't yet seen crypto firms in the US lay off, big numbers of people. Definitely nothing like what we've seen at Amazon and other tech companies. But just today we had, the company that trades under Gemini Spaceship, owned by now publicly traded company, but founded by the Winklevoss twins, say that they're essentially cutting all of their operations internationally and citing increased operational complexity. If these kinds of prices persist, however, if we start to get, below 60 into 55, 50, we fully expect that other companies will announce similar cost-cutting measures. There was a lot of hiring and enthusiasm going into the second Trump presidency on the expectation that prices would be higher than where they are right now. And when we've seen that in the past, retrenchment is almost inevitable.
Team, it's been great to get your analysis. Thank you. Bloomberg MI strategist Brendan Fagan, Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head Technology of Research Mandeep Singh, and Executive Editor for Crypto, Stacey Marie Ishmael. Coming up on the Asia Trade, we preview Sunday's Japanese election with a ruling party lawmaker and assess the potential market and economic impacts of the vote with JP Morgan Securities and Fitch Ratings. Much more ahead. This is Bloomberg.
Japan heads to the polls on Sunday for a snap election that could reshape the nation's political balance. Voters will decide all 465 seats in the lower house, and the outcome will set the course for the ruling coalition's economic and diplomatic ambitions. Let's bring in our economy and government reporter Yoshiaki Nohara. Yoshi, so give us some insight onto how these polls look and how significant this vote could be, given that so much is at stake, including foreign policy, with Takaichi's expected visit to the U.S. soon.
Right. So polls are pretty much showing predicting the decisive victory for Prime Minister Takaichi's ruling coalition. So that means that if that becomes true, she's going to get a pretty good mandate from the public to pursue what people say to be more assertive Japan on the diplomatic front and defense front, and probably on the economic front, more spending and aggressive fiscal policies with the fiscal balance in mind. So there's a lot at stake for the public and also as a nation as a whole. Because as you mentioned that President Trump just mentioned that he's expecting to host Prime Minister Takaichi in mid-March, and that's going to be a kind of a combination of the showing how the win would mean on the diplomatic front with the U.S., which is the most important ally for the Japan on the defense front. But at home, there's complication to the election as well, because you see it's a different dynamics in this election. So that means that there's a risk factor for Takaichi as well, still remains to be seen.
Yeah, the meeting with President Trump expected to be March 19th, but tell us a little bit more about the changed dynamics domestically that it really raised the risks for Takaichi.
So one of the reasons why Prime Minister Takaichi called for this election was she wanted to see if the public feels okay with the new coalition. And new coalition is made by the ruling Liberal Democratic Party and the party called Japan Innovation Party. But that means that the old coalition is gone with Komeito. So the wild card here is how the Komeito voters will cast their votes. If they decide to just entirely switch their votes to the opposition party, which they just formed with the biggest opposition party. So that could be a big swing factor in this election. So we never know what's going to happen.
That's the sound of an American oil company hard at work. Want to be a part of it? Listen up.
Hello.
Yoshi, externally, Japan, of course, faces pressure from China. How much support do you think Takaichi might be seeking from Trump when they meet?
So, so that's a really good thing to keep thinking at this point. Remember that President Trump is going to Beijing to meet Xi Jinping in April, probably. So that means that from his standpoint, he wants to signal that he's aligned with Japan, which is the strongest ally in Asia Pacific. But at the same time, from Takaichi's standpoint, she wants to make sure that she's got strong backing from the public. And if history shows that when Japan has a strong leader with a strong backing from the public, China may change its stance for its leader. If you know what happened with late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, when he won big and returned to power with a big mandate, then it was signaling the start of seeking off-ramp between the diplomatic dispute that Japan had with China back then.
Yoshi, thank you so much. Always great to get your insights. Bloomberg economy and government reporter Yoshiaki Nohara. Now let's take a look at how markets are faring, particularly commodities, as some of the Iran worries ease off a little ahead of talks. We are seeing, in terms of oil prices, that continued decline. Saudi Arabia is also cutting some of the key oil prices for its Asian buyers. So the focus does seem to be on this global supply glut of the commodity. Some other top global headlines we're following as well. The Cuban government says it's willing to negotiate with the US as it prepares for acute fuel shortages due to increased pressure from Washington. President Trump last month cut off Cuba's fuel supply from Venezuela after the capture of Nicolas Maduro. He also threatened other countries with tariffs if they come to Cuba's aid with energy shipments. Bloomberg has learned that China is asking state firms to pause talks on new projects in Panama. It comes after the top Panamanian court voided C.K. Hutchison's contract to operate 2 ports along its strategic canal. Sources say China has also asked shipping companies to consider rerouting cargo through other ports. Moody's Ratings has lowered its outlook on Indonesia's credit rating from stable to negative, citing concerns over policy stability under President Prabowo Subianto. This means the country's Baa2 rating could be downgraded if the government doesn't take steps to address fiscal pressures and a weakening in foreign reserves. The move comes days after a massive sell-off in the country's stock market over investability concerns. We have more ahead on the Asia trade. This is Bloomberg.
ARM shares rebounded after Wall Street analysts praised the chip designer's latest quarterly report, which initially drew a tepid response from investors. CEO Rene Haas told us their data center business is accelerating faster than expected.
We have a line of sight that says we see it coming, and it's probably coming sooner than we had thought. And the reason for that is the data center growth. But if you click below that, why is data center growing so rapidly? It is the presence of ARM CPUs in the data center. We're now over 50% market share of the hyperscalers. Secondly, the CPUs that are being used are using more ARM CPUs inside the chip. 192 cores, for example, inside a Graviton chip, going from 96. NVIDIA Vera going from 72 cores on Grace now to 88. So what does that mean? That means more cores means more royalties and high growth rate. Well, why are there more cores? When you think about agentic AI and everything associated with agents moving workloads across systems, managing workflows, et cetera, that's the kind of work only CPUs can do. So to your question, while we're not giving a date, we can see it, and it's coming sooner than we had thought, even probably 6 to 9 months ago.
And probably on the back of when you look at an Alphabet increasing its capital expenditure by another potentially $185 billion, Renee, Is the AI bubble, this worry about AI infrastructure build out, a thing of the past to you, or there are still some bottleneck issues that you're concerned about?
Yeah, so it's a great observation, Caroline. And yes, there's huge growth in Google's capex. Not all of that $180 billion is coming to us, of course. But what does that say? We continue to see investments in the data center, whether it's what Meta had announced or Microsoft announced, and now Google, Alphabet, that exceed what people had originally thought was even possible, even a couple of years ago. If you go back to when we announced the Stargate initiative in January of 2024, $500 billion over a number of years, people looked at those numbers and said, how is that even possible? Now 18 months later, it looks quite credible. So bottom line is, we are seeing such an investment because the AI opportunity, the way I like to think about it, is kind of the final frontier relative to technology. When you think about what could be beyond AI, it's really hard to imagine. So also the fact that AI has really had very little penetration, let's say into large enterprise or into our health systems or things around drug discovery. So there's a long runway. I think people are a little nervous about it, as decidedly so, because we've just not seen it before, right? We've not seen the order of magnitude we're talking about. It's somewhat natural for people to look at it and say, well, gravity's got to hit it sometime. But then if you intellectually look at it and say, my gosh, is AI going to be something that will change and transform how everything is done? Well, of course. And then there's going to be investment to support that. And that's what we're saying.
CEO Renee Haas speaking to Bloomberg's Caroline High. Let's take a look at how U.S. assets are faring as well. Following that tech rout, futures are pointing to further declines. There is that bid for havens underway as we see continued deterioration in the U.S. labor market. This chart also shows you that we are seeing this jump in jobless claims, slide in job openings, a surge in job cut announcements, driving that demand for safe havens in a way. This is Bloomberg.
Why you forget what you've just read before you even finish the page?
Your brain is untrained. 15 minutes of intelligence training a day.
Take a look at how Japanese assets are setting up for the market opens in less than half an hour. We're seeing the Japanese yen holding steady at that 156 level, very close to 157, and really headed towards that 160 level that has been seen by many as potentially an intervention level by authorities. And you can see Nikkei futures pointing to the downside. We had some negative sentiment coming from the earnings season, but also, of course, we're watching that tech sell-off in the U.S. JGBs actually gained in the previous session. We had a solid 30-year auction. But of course, all eyes right now on the fiscal picture for Japan as we're headed towards an election. Actually, take a look at what's at stake for Japan and Prime Minister Takaichi in Sunday's vote.
国民の皆様、私は本日内閣総理大臣として
Just 3 months into the job, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi dissolved Japan's lower house, calling a fresh vote for February 8th.
衆議院を解散する。
Coming from a string of election setbacks for the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Takaichi is aiming to capitalize on high public support and increase her majority in the more powerful lower house. Some recent polls show an approval rating of more than 60%.
I think Takaichi is really in an extremely enviable position. I mean, her support rates have been consistently extremely high, and I think that's going to do quite a lot for her in this election.
A stronger mandate would make it easier for Takaichi to push through her agenda, including higher defense spending and the largest supplemental budget since the pandemic. But the road to victory might not be straightforward. The LDP's alliance with Komeito fractured last year, ending a 26-year political partnership. The realignment injects new uncertainty into Japan's electoral dynamics. Voters, though, are more focused on the cost of living. Inflation has stayed above the Bank of Japan's 2% target for more than 3 years. While wages lag and a weak yen pushes up import cost, giving a sense of falling living standards. To ease the pressure, Takaichi pledged to suspend the 8% sales tax on food for 2 years.
Maybe it's because of the weather, but the price of vegetables, some are just shocking, aren't they? Even things like snacks and chocolate, their prices haven't doubled yet, but they've suddenly gone up quite a bit. Same with rice.
I wish they stopped just talking about tax cuts or eliminating the consumption tax during the election season and actually put realistic measures into practice.
The stakes are high. An increased majority would give Takaichi a green light to pursue what supporters call a more assertive Japan, with higher defense spending and state-led investment. But a loss of seats would be a self-inflicted wound for the new prime minister, who has said she would step down as party leader if that happens. Even before ballots are cast, markets are reacting. The yen has wavered and the government bond yields have risen, reflecting investor unease over Japan's fiscal path.
Since October of last year, we have taken a very responsible approach to public finance, talking about responsible, sustainable, and proactive fiscal policies. We are not talking about expansionary fiscal policies, and this is demonstrated by some of the numbers that we see. So I asked the market participants to calm down.
Japanese stocks have already outperformed many of their peers as investors focus on the so-called Takaichi trade. Ariel Buzetto, Bloomberg, Tokyo.
Let's get more perspective on the upcoming elections here in Japan. Orfia Eri is a member of the ruling LDP, serving as the Parliamentary Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs. She is the first Japanese lawmaker of Uyghur and Uzbek descent and previously had roles at the Bank of Japan and the UN Secretariat. She joins us now. Thank you so much for making the time during your busy election schedule. I know that you've been speaking to all of your constituents. What's important for Japanese voters right now as they head to the polls? And is the LDP doing enough to address those concerns?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's right in the middle of election season. I'm on my smartphone, so I apologize for the screen. But I'm going around my constituency, and what they are concerned about, economic sustainability. They're concerned about rising cost of living, inflation. But they're also concerned about Japan's role in the world. I think Prime Minister Takaichi coming to her position and leading our country as the first female Prime Minister of Japan, I think has inspired so many people. And her approach to diplomacy, her successes in her high-level diplomacy has really inspired the Japanese people. And they're just as interested in our approach to diplomacy, national security, as they are in economics as well.
Be honest, do you really need 7 different apps just to trade? You've got charts on one app, breaking news on another, insider trades hidden somewhere else. By the time you finally piece it all together, the move's already gone. That's why I switched to the Trading Ideas app. Everything I need is in one clean dashboard with real-time alerts, top gainers, halts, insider trades, breaking news all without the noise. Search Trading Ideas app in the App Store or Google Play and download it for free. One app, one dashboard, all the moves right when they happen. I am not a real person, but AI generated. This presentation is for informational purposes only. The Trading Ideas app and its owners are not licensed investment advisors. Investing is risky. Do your own research before investing.
Make this one simple change when filling out your FAFSA to cut your EFC and SAI in half so you can pay for your kids' college without taking out loans. I'm Mike Escobar from Yorkshire College Planning. And like you, I'm also a parent, a father of 4. Yorkshire College Planning helps parents cut their EFCs and SAIs in half in as little as 7 days. Parents who are expecting
in our approach to diplomacy, national security, as they are in economics as well.
And of course, you have a lot of insight on the state of diplomatic relations, especially within the Foreign Affairs Ministry, but also as you grew up in China as well. Tensions between China and Japan have risen recently. How do you expect that relationship to unfold under a new mandate by Prime Minister Takaichi?
I expect her to, well, if she is reelected, that means that there is a democratic will to support her continued stance on her policies. We don't expect that to change, and I think that is one of the main topics of this election, is that we are asking the Japanese people what they see as the most favorable diplomatic and foreign policy. And as regards China, Japan's policy on China has not changed. I think we have remained steadfast in our diplomatic relations with China, and we are asking our constituents whether that is what they would like to see or something else.
How is Japan looking at the Trump-Xi meeting that is expected for April in Beijing?
How is Japan seeing, excuse me?
How is Japan looking at this upcoming meeting between the leaders of China and the US that is set for, a couple of months from now? How do you think they view the US-China relationship at this stage?
In my role as Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, I'm not going to get ahead of making assumptions about how we see other countries and their relations. But again, our foreign policy remains the same. The United States remains a very important ally to us, and we maintain a communication channel with China as we always have been. And it is, I think, important that all of our partners in the world and different countries around the world, especially countries like China and the US, continue their diplomatic conversation, and we, remain keen on observing how that conversation will unfold.
Is Japan looking for perhaps more support from the US?
More support from the US in our relations with China?
In general, as there's more pressure with Beijing, does that also mean that when Trump and Takaichi are said to meet, maybe some commitments and reassurances on these long-standing allies might be required?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of myself on making statements on behalf of the government. But again, our government stance remains the same. We remain in alliance with partner countries, including the United States, who believe in the values of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. That does not change for Japan. And we trust that our partners, including the United States, continue to be in alliance with us in defending these values. And Japan, of course, has every right to speak about its own national security, and we remain steadfast in our right to, in protecting our right to do so.
Prime Minister Takaichi has been immensely popular within Japan, especially among young voters. Do you expect that to translate into actual votes for the Liberal Democratic Party at a time when, of course, the party itself has suffered from a lot of different scandals and also controversy as well in the past? Can the ruling party leave all of that behind?
That's a very good question, Sherry. My sense, going around my constituency, is that we are more popular amongst young voters than we have ever been. I do hope that they do turn out to vote. I am in the middle of election season, so I do hope that it does reflect into our elections results. But in general, not just because we would like to win, for example, but I think it's important that every single person in Japan is involved in democracy, and it's especially important that our youth showcase their own opinions, whether they support us or not, in the polls. So what I'm doing in my own constituency, which is urban, is to really encourage young people, whether they support us or not, to show up to the polls and to have their happy voice be heard. Because we are talking about policies that will affect them the most. We're talking about policies that will have impact for 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades to come in Parliament. And I think Prime Minister Takaichi's popularity has really symbolized that to young people. I think they are now more interested in politics. They're now more aware that choices we make in choosing our leaders actually have a significant impact on how we are seen in the world, how we see ourselves, how we maybe even see ourselves in our own leaders. This is true where girls growing up in
great
Japan,
dreams come
a
true.
young
They got the
woman
best teachers
in
in the world.
Japan as well.
We're going to go check
And I
on our
hope
churches and
that
charities.
sense of inspiration
We'll run to the
that they have
office,
gotten from
check on
Mr.
their brick and mortar
Takaichi
location,
will
check
inspire
on the
them to
family,
go to vote, whether they vote for
continue
us or not.
teaching engineering, and we'll take Milo for a walk.
I think a lot of the policies that are being talked about right now, of course, will have a significant impact on young people, given that we're also talking about temporary suspensions of taxes for food, for example, which will mean a bigger debt burden